r/AskReddit. What's the dumbest thing you ever cried over? One time I was having a really rough day and then I was walking by a lake when saw a mama duck with only one baby duck and realized all her other babies had died. I don't even like ducks. Or strangers' babies. It was a weird day. Hey, I know this is probably too late. But ducks kind of share parenting responsibilities. It's likely that the other babies were elsewhere, with different parents from the same flock. Yes. That's exactly what happened. And any other scenario shouldn't be discussed. I hate killing mice. My husband hates mice. So we compromised that we'd get live traps for the mice in our house. And I'm take them out to the woods and let them loose when we caught them. So, caught a mouse one day. Took it to the woods and let it loose. Got back in my car to leave. And the damn stupid mouse ran right out in front of my tire and I ran him over. I sobbed for hours. Feeling totally ridiculous the whole damn time. That wasn't your fault. It was a dumb mouse. Sorry to hear that though. Yeah, Rob helped the species. That one was not best fit for survival.
Claim your free AirPods today by clicking the first link in the description down below.
I lost all of my money on Neopets due to a random event. I didn't realize that this is what had happened, of course. I went onto the forums and said I had been hacked because clearly this is the only explanation I could think of, being the early 14 that I was. I was then called a liar and received reply upon reply about how you couldn't get hacked on Neopets and that I needed to stop making up stories. I fell out of the chair, crawled to the stairs, and sobbed down to my grandmother, who went into a full-on panic. She later told me she thought someone had died and I had somehow been the first to find out. Duck that stupid sloth character for stealing my money and duck that stupid avatar I got for the event. It wasn't even a pretty avatar. To be fair, Neopets was a pretty big deal. I remember investing a truly ridiculous amount of time into saving up money and buying paintbrushes. I still waste too much time on Neopets. It's not really dumb, but I felt kinda silly. Dale Jr. won at Talladega a couple years ago. He hadn't won there in 10 years. I was so happy that he won, and I wanted to call my dad, because we were both Earnhardt fans. My dad's been gone for a few years. So I went from happiness to excitement to sadness after getting the impulse to call my dead father. I cried for a few minutes. Honestly, not a stupid thing to cry over. Sorry about your dad. Also, that was a crazy race. Any Earnhardt Talladega is worth crying over. I cried over spilled milk as a teenager. I was pouring milk for my cereal on a school day. It was so early and I was so tired that I poured out half the gallon before I realized that my bowl had overflowed out onto the table and floor. My dad had just switched jobs a week before and took a massive pay cut, so my parents were making it very aware to us that we needed to do everything we could to cut costs. I just lost it and started bawling while trying to mop it up. I was sobbing. They work so hard for the money to buy this milk. On the way to school I realized that I literally cried over spilled milk and had a laugh. Your dad cold made the most epic dad joke. Hell. That moment is a dad joke. The first Christmas without my grandma. She died a week before. I went to the butcher to pick up our beef tenderloin for Christmas dinner. I had placed an order for 4 instead of 5 people. He brought me out a full tenderloin. $270 worth of meat for some other family. I starting sobbing at the butcher. That isn't my meat. It was awful and hilarious. Poor guy didn't know what happened. This isn't dumb, and I'm sorry for your loss. But I cannot stop giggling at that poor butcher who had no idea why you'd sob that he brought you the wrong order. I had just found out my best friend died when some poor telemarketer called me. I kind of giggle now thinking of that poor guy trying to sell me something, and I start crying / raging at him and blaming him for everything. Lol. My first morning of college. I went to shower and the water was freezing and not warming up, so I cried because I missed the hot showers at home. and thought they would be like this all year. But then, the water warmed up, so I sobbed some more, because I was so thankful. I mean, cold showers are just the worst, so I get it. I was working a horrible job that was crushing my soul. 12-hour days. 7 days a week at a white shoe law firm. One of the partners was a giant ass and had picked me as a punching bag. Went on for months, and I was emotionally drained to the point of snapping. On this day, he basically required me to put together a PowerPoint justifying my existence and pretty much made clear that he wanted me gone. I left work and decided I needed several drinks. I realized I had lost my wallet. I had $5 in my pocket and wouldn't have any other cash until the next day. I bought a cheap pint of vodka. As I walked up to my building, the back broke and bottle smashed on the ground. Grown man. Bawling on a bench. Over a $5 bottle of vodka. That's not ridiculous at all, besides that guy being that much of an ass. That is ridiculous. That's fucking depressing. Man. At least you're out of that hellhole now. When I was 13, I cried to the episode of SpongeBob where Gary leaves SpongeBob for Patrick. This is what I wanted to read. I thought what we had was special. When my lost luggage was returned to me. Had a connecting flight from Amsterdam to Rome. But my luggage never made it on the plane in time. Spent 3 days wearing the same clothes around Rome. Cried and gave my suitcase a hug when it was delivered. I've definitely been there. Amsterdam or Rome? I had a day off and some extra magic mushrooms, so I parked my car at a park and ate them. Listened to some music and watched the trees in my car for a while. I forgot I had taken them when I started watching an old lady playing with her dog. It was really cute and they were having fun. And I was having fun watching them. Suddenly it dawned on me that either the dog or the woman would be dead at some point in the future. And they wouldn't have each other forever. The existential realities of death and life swarmed me while I was watching the riveting game of fetch unfold. I cried like a rich for like a full hour. Alone and tripping balls. Not me. But my friend was tripping acid a while back and he called us sobbing to come get him. We drove to his house and he was sitting in the backseat in his car, parked in the driveway. We got him out and into our car and asked him what was going on. He said that he was watching the rain in the car and realized something about the water droplets on the window. How they came from all different places and wouldn't ever be together again. He was so sad for the raindrops. Yeah, that sounds about right. I went to a Vietnamese restaurant out of town because I'd been dreaming of good pho for weeks, and there was a kid sitting a couple tables away from me who just got his bowl of pho and promptly spilled it all over himself and the floor. I hadn't gotten my food yet and I just started bawling out of nowhere because I was so sad to see it wasted when I wanted some so bad. OMG, this is my favorite. Mine too. I've gotten very emotional over spilled food in the past. Even when it's not mine, haha. I was so hungry and tired and grumpy when I opened the takeaway bag and the Thai place had forgotten the noodles for my dish. Nothing silly about that. I would be bawling. My dad recorded the '98 World Cup final over an episode of Arthur I didn't get around to watching yet. Almost the same for me in '94. Got told I had to go to a family dinner, so I recorded it and watched the next morning after taking extreme measures to avoid spoilers. I was about 10 minutes into the game when my dad walked in. He wasn't a football guy and said, "Have you got to the penalties yet?" I was planning on watching that tonight. Thanks for the spoilers. You know that Amazon commercial where the baby is afraid of the dog but likes a toy lion, so the dad gets the dog a lion mane and the baby pets the dog every ducking time. Got a lump in my throat just typing this. The Amazon commercial with the priest and the imam buying each other the knee pads for prayers makes me sob every time. Isn't that also based on a religious story? I can't remember it exactly, but it's something to do with two guys of faith secretly gifting each other constantly. Beautiful ad though. I think it's clever marketing to go for the heart. My freshman year of college I was super depressed with huge mood swings and I didn't understand why. I forced myself to go to the big rivalry basketball game in an effort to be more social. My school won in what was kind of an upset. And the crowd exploded with cheers and people stormed the court. I just started bawling. Everyone around me was happy and cheering and I was crying, and I had no idea why, because I wasn't even sad or anything. I walked back to my dorm. Still bawling. What is wrong with me? Why am I crying? When I realized there might be a link to the new birth control I had been taking. Of course my emotions were out of whack. I was taking estrogen pills. I stopped taking them, and 2 weeks later I was back to normal. So the dumbest reason I ever had a crying meltdown was because my school won a basketball game. Woo man, I remember being on estrogen birth control pills, and it was a complete mess. One night I could not stop crying because the whales at SeaWorld needed my help and there I was being useless in the middle of the Midwest and no actual connection to any whale. OMG, the journey to finding the best birth control was so bad. There was the one that made me ravenously hungry. The one that made my boobs hurt so much that wearing a bra was torture. And the one that made me openly bull in McDonald's because my boyfriend got me a large fry instead of a medium fry because he must think I'm fat. Who knows? Totally crazy. I was having a terrible morning with everything going wrong and my job was driving me crazy. So during lunchtime I decided to get a MC done all Sunday, and since it was a bad day and I wanted to get better, I paid to get extra chocolate syrup. I waited, received the sundae, and looked for a bench to sit and eat it. When I sat, I realized they forgot to put my extra syrup. I was already so pissed off at everything that, instead of going back and asking for the syrup, I just started crying like crazy while eating the not as expected sundae. My new job is awful. A few weeks ago I was having a particularly hard day and the only thing I had to look forward to was the fact that it was potato soup day at the store next to my office. I went to lunch early specifically so I could go get some and improve my mood. At 11:30 AM I got to the counter, ordered a potato soup, and was told that they had just sold out. I promptly burst into tears. The poor lady at the counter was so shocked. She started sputtering that she was sure they could find me something nice instead of the potato soup. I just gave a deep shuddering sob and walked out. The girl I share an office with glanced over as I walked back into our room and just passively said, "So, no soup," and returned to her computer. I hate my job. I wish I could make you some soup. I make the most itchin' baked potato soup. I actually bake the potatoes with loads of crispy bacon. I hope your job gets better or you find a job that makes you happy. I was already feeling pretty fragile anyways, yay teenage depression, and was walking to the shop or something in the middle of winter when there was snow on the ground. My boot must have had a tiny pinprick sized hole and snow slush / water seeped in, making my sock wet. I got home and my mum asked me what was up and I just started bawling because my sock was wet. Reasonable. Duck wet socks. Wet socks are truly awful. My grandma had a Fisher-Price farm that I played with when I was growing up. I loved that thing so much. I never wanted to ask that she will it to me because I don't want to bring up her death to either of us. Last month, she painted it black for Halloween because nobody played with it. I was sobbing in my bathroom at college. You should have just said something like, "Oh, I love that little farm that I used to play with. Can you save it for me when I have kids?" For real. Am I the only one who thinks this is weird as duck? Why would you ask your grandma to will a toy to you? One time I was missing real bad and a brick wall made me cry. I was trying to focus on something neutral in an attempt to reach emotional stability, so I stared at a brick wall, and it had the opposite of its intended effect. That brick wall ducking wrecked me. Brick walls, man. They are not nice. Hell. I remember this one time. I was talking to this wall, and it was just hurling insults at me left and right. And then it tried to fight me. I wanted to curl up into a ball and die. No. That's a brick wall. Edit. Holy hit 715 upvotes. When I was 12 or 13, I saw Jurassic Park, the infamous Futurama episode where Fry's dog dies. The final scene brought out the waterworks in me, and soon I found myself audibly sobbing to a mad groaning show. Unbeknownst to me, My mother had snuck into my room and was watching me cry. She broke the silence by asking me what was wrong. But I was so embarrassed by crying over an animated comedy series that I immediately thought up a lie. I told my mom that her recent divorce, she and my stepfather had broken up 6 months before, was really taking a toll on me. She found me a therapist and insisted that I go talk to them. It cost her $300 worth of sessions with a shrink before I could admit that my emotions weren't fueled by my now broken family, but instead by a cartoon dog. Fry's dog always choked me up. What do we want? Fry's dog. When do we want him? Fry's dog. I was pregnant and husband joked that he was going to eat all the egg rolls we were about to order. I even knew he was joking, but full on baby sobbed in the waiting area at Sunny's. I was expecting at least half of this thread to be pregnant stories, because I have never been as ridiculous of a crier as I was while pregnant, but your story made me legitimately laugh out loud. That is too funny. Haha, yeah. Pregnancy does a number on us for sure. I'm currently pregnant again, and angry cried a few months ago because my dad and husband got thirds on bratwursts when I hadn't even started on my first. I had been fixing a plate for my daughter, and when I realized they ate the last of them when I had been craving them for weeks, I cried so hard. Never come between a pregnant lady and her food. I tend to get emotionally attached to objects for some reason. Not really sure why, but one time I cried for a whole hour over losing my favorite pencil. I managed to find it later in my bag and cried again over how happy I was.